What about this one?
Nah.
Mm,
Oh, of course.
no.
Come on. Classic. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. What was it?
Welcome back to Super Throwback to the Classics here with Back to the Classics. I am your host, Danger Neff, and you can always follow us on iHeartRadio, Apple Music, and Spotify. I'm actually joined here with my sister, the wonderful and beautiful Gwen Neff, and I gotta ask, what is that on your shirt?
It's Talk to Me, Goose.
Gee, boy, I wonder if that has something to do with the movie that we're actually going to be covering this week.
Probably. I mean, gotta talk about it.
Definitely. Gwen, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. For those Sunday folks out there, our apologies. Jay actually couldn't make it at this time, as you guys probably would have known if you watched our last episode. He had to start a new job. This new job kind of ran a little bit late for him, so he's kind of figuring out the schedule a little bit. So I went ahead and took over for this week. And I selected my sister because this is one of her all-time, if not the all-time favorite movie that she's ever watched. And to be fair, I love this movie myself. Over this COVID break, how many times did you watch the movie that we're talking about?
I think I've watched it 4 times, including today.
4 times, including today. Okay.
Of course.
And this is, and mind you, I'm only talking about the COVID break that I was on. You were working all this time as you were an essential worker, whatever that means, right?
I was essential. I was a complete essential worker.
And obviously, COVID has kind of ruined everybody's lives a little bit. How did it ruin yours this summer?
Well, I should be packing for a trip to Europe this weekend, which is not happening.
No, we both should be. For those other folks who don't know, my sister, she's a huge movie fan. It's funny because during this COVID break, I've actually been kind of hanging out with her while she's been going through like TV shows and whatnot. And you went through well, you tell me, what have you been up to?
Well, I just finished Ally McBeal.
Yeah, we did that.
We did that. I'm actually in the middle of Buffy the Vampire Slayer right now.
Yeah, because there's not a lot to do right now.
Right. I finished Grey's Anatomy. I'm all caught up through season 16, so I'm ready for season 17.
Oh, so did you go through all 16 seasons?
Yeah.
Wow.
Up until 3:00 in the morning watching it. I did watch Sweet Magnolia on Netflix. That was a pretty good show.
Right. Oh, okay. So you watched the TV show, not the movie. I mean, you've seen it.
Right. So I watched the Sweet Magnolias. That was a pretty good show. I did have to watch, of course, with your niece, I did have to watch Fuller House.
Yes. Yeah. That was a huge thing that was driving me nuts.
She tortured, not tortured, but I like Fuller House.
I enjoyed it also. So let's not make it seem that it's so everything that's been kind of going on, have you found a way to kind of show a semblance of normalcy? Have you taken up any new hobbies, any new I don't know, like anything else?
Not really.
Really?
I'm doing a lot of reading.
Really? I'm totally
What?
giving a moment here to self-promote your business that you've started.
Oh, yes, my new business. Yes, I am officially a Scentsy consultant. So if anyone's looking for a Scentsy consultant, you can look me up, Gwen Neff, at gwenneff.scentsy.us. So we sell waxes. We've got a lot of Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff. Mm-hmm. So Disney. So y'all come hook me up and look me up.
Excellent. Really glad that we were able to get that. Unfortunately, for those new cinefolks, there's just not a lot of movie news out there. The big ones are being, well, everything is pushed back until oblivion. We're never going to be able to have a normal semblance of life and a normal thing whatsoever ever again. But I just recently posted something on the IG page, and I wanted to get your personal opinion. So obviously, a lot of movies got pushed back, and I don't think everybody really realized how much stuff got pushed back until you actually see it like physically, right? So I'm going to ask you for your top 3 movies and give me why those movies are the 3 movies I actually wanted to see. So here we go. New function, guys. We're totally doing a share screen. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
All right. Give me your top 3 from this list.
My top 3 from this list. Okay.
Tax Collector, Prince Dispatch, God versus King, which is Godzilla versus King Kong, Candyman, Top Gun Maverick, Spiral, Morbius, Quiet Place 2, F9 or Fast 9, No Time to Die, which is James Bond, Tenet, Dune, Black Widow, Wonder Woman 1984, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and The Woman in the Window. So give me your top 3.
Do I really have to give you my top 3? Because I would have told you my top 6.
Give me 3. Give me your top 3.
Okay, my top 3. Wonder Woman, of course, because I love Gal Gadot, and I loved the first Wonder Woman, and I was extremely disappointed I kept getting pushed back.
Okay.
Fast 9, because I love it. Everybody knows I love the Fast and Furious saga. I'm the only one in the family that does. I'm a Dominic Toretto fan. And of course, my boyfriend, Tom Cruise, Maverick. I was so looking forward to watching that on June 22nd. I was so disappointed. I was really excited because, number one, my kid wasn't going to be here, so I was going to be able to go to an adult movie without a kid. And not have to leave like halfway through the fight scene like it normally happens. So I was extremely happy about that. But I guess the movie that I'm going to be watching at Christmas time this year will be Maverick. Will be my Christmas movie on Christmas Day. Although probably knowing me, that will probably be the second time that I watch it, since I'll be going on December 23rd.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case for a good amount of people. But seeing that you got the shirt, seeing that you got everything, let's go ahead and get into today's movie. Today we're taking this all the way back to the 80s, all the way back to 1986, May 16th, 1986, with the movie Top Gun. Original release date was May 16th, 1986. It shares opening release only with Sweet Liberty, but there were other movies that were also in the box office at the time, including Short Circuit, Legend, The Money Pit, Police Academy 3, No Retreat, No Surrender, Critters, and Pretty in Pink. That's a hell of a box office for it to go through. It came on a budget of $15 million, which is ridiculously low considering everything that kind of happens in this movie, with a box office gross of $356.8 million. Rotten Tomato score currently holding, and see, this is what happens when I don't do this immediately. Currently holding a 54% by critics in Rotten Tomatoes. Gwen, is that fair?
No.
Why is it not fair?
Well, first of all, those critics were Siskel and Ebert, and they're no longer there, so they don't count anymore.
I mean, Ebert's still around.
Well, Ebert's still around, but he still don't count. You know what? Here's my thing: is critics have never been major fans of Tom Cruise.
Sure. Yeah.
And any movie that he does, doesn't matter how hard he works at it, he's never going to get the love. He never gets love until, unless it's the Golden Globes or the Screen Actors Guild. But no, this movie, 54%, they suck. So, and not that I'm biased or anything, not that this is not just my favorite movie of all time, but come on, people, 54%, get real.
Now, to be fair, audience scores did score at 83%, which I think is
thank goodness.
Which I think is pretty fair. Would you score it higher than 83?
Would I score it higher than 83? Oh, of course I'd score it higher than 83. I mean, it's not going to be 100% because we all know what Dad says happens in the movie, that he drives us crazy every time we watch it.
Yeah, we'll get into that in the movie. This movie is a winner of an Academy Award for the following song: Best Original Song by Berlin. Anyways, you get the idea.
See my hair flowing.
This song, it's a great song, but it drives me nuts in this movie. I can't like fathom and deal with it for most of this movie, because I told you what was the problem with this movie is that it really plays its soundtrack out throughout this movie. Now keep in mind, this movie is only like an hour. I think it's a little bit more than that.
Hour and 49 minutes.
Sure, fine. It's 110 minutes, right? Hour and 50 minutes, right? And when I tell you that they play this song about like 4 times in this movie, it drives you nuts after a while. How does it not drive you nuts?
It doesn't drive me nuts because it's a great song. And have you noticed that in the 80s soundtrack, in comparison to today's films, you hear the soundtracks in the 80s movies and the 90s movies better than you do in today's day. I mean, do we go out now and buy the soundtrack to Avengers Infinity War? No.
But that's more of a film score more than anything.
Right, but
you have
if you have
Baby Driver is a perfect example. Baby Driver had a very good soundtrack. But you have a point. There are more people that definitely buy more of the 80s and 90s soundtracks than they would the 2000s to and 2010s. I'm not gonna deny that. But I don't remember in the 80s a song being repeatedly played. I don't know. I gotta think about that. A song repeatedly play all the time in the same movie, and not
Footloose.
Just okay. Footloose is a singing. It is a dance and singing movie, though. Like the whole point of that is music in that. Not even Dirty Dancing. I don't think Dirty Dancing replays their songs, and they're literally practicing dancing.
No, they changed their songs, but the whole soundtrack plays through the movie.
That's what I'm saying. This song repeats itself 4 times in this movie.
Nope. We'll take it up with Jerry Bruckheimer and Tony Scott. Well,
you know what? I will take it up with the corpse of Tony Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer.
Bruckheimer's not dead, but rest in peace, Tony Scott.
This movie is directed by Tony Scott. It stars Tom Cruise, Kelly McGillis, who fell off the face of the earth, Val Kilmer, Anthony Edwards, Tom Skerritt, a couple other people here. Michael Ironside, a personal favorite of mine, always will be a favorite of mine. And, of course, a very late performance by Meg Ryan.
Don't forget Tim Robbins is in the movie, too.
Tim Robbins is in the movie briefly, but he is in the movie. Well, he's Merlin, so that's a good point. But let's kick this movie off. United States Naval Aviator Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell and his radar intercept officer, Lieutenant, was he just a lieutenant?
Yeah, he was a lieutenant.
Is it?
Yeah, they were both lieutenants.
But he was junior grade, wasn't he?
Second lieutenant.
Okay, so junior grade.
Yeah.
So Nick Goose Bradshaw flies the F-14A Tomcat aboard the USS Enterprise. And let's talk about this opening scene, because this opening scene happens very, very, very fast, and it is a stunning sight to really see. Because you're getting this view of Tom Cruise in all his 80s glory. I mean, he has the chipmunk cheeks popping out in this, with that big goofy smile, that big goofy Scientology smile. And during an interception with two hostile MiG 28 aircraft, as I know my father would love for me to say, Maverick gets a missile lock on one, while the other hostile aircraft locks on Maverick's wingman, who's Cougar. While Maverick drives off the MiG-28, and he does this in such a fantastic fashion, because as the plane is coming in, he basically hits the brakes, flies right by them, sneaks up behind them, and goes inverted. So that means that Maverick is upside down to the other guy, where they snap a Polaroid of the MiG-28 pilot at the time. And they also gave him the international hello from the United States, which is the bird. You give him the bird.
The bird. International relations.
That's right, because we're really big on that.
That's right.
While Maverick drives off the remaining MiG-28, Cougar is too shaken to land, and Pete, defying orders, shepherds him back to the carrier. And it's a pretty intense scene, actually, because in case people don't realize, fighter jets aren't cheap. I think the F-14 was minimum $10 million aircraft.
That's about right.
No, I'm wrong. I actually just looked this up. In 1977, it was a $20 million aircraft. In 1998, it was a $38 million aircraft. So crashing that sucker really doesn't look good for anybody involved. So as he decides to get him back, Cougar decides to give up his wings, citing his newborn child that he has never seen. Kind of sounds like another 80s movie that was happening around that time. Military people trying to become, a higher level of themselves. What am I talking about?
Officer and a Gentleman.
I sure am. Officer and a Gentleman. A really underrated movie in my eyes. That movie is just amazing. So, are you singing? I told you not to sing. We don't sing on this broadcast. So, despite his dislike for Maverick's recklessness, Carrier Wing Stinger sends him and Goose to attend Top Gun, the naval fighter weapons school of the Naval Air Station in Miramar, California. Now, I have been to the Miramar Station, all right? And I gotta say, it's really, really cool and nostalgic, because you get this really great scene later on of how wild and reckless Maverick is, riding a motorcycle without a helmet, and he's speeding down, he's basically trying to outrun a fighter jet, which obviously isn't going to happen. But he has so much love and joy for flying that it kind of takes on its own little personality a little bit. There's a lot of joy to come in with this. What do you think?
That, of course, is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, seeing him race the motorcycle across across the runway. And yes, it brings a lot of joy, and it actually brings you that sense of nostalgia, that sense of patriotism, in a sense, going into Fighter Town, USA, as they call Miramar. And I think it's a great scene and amazing.
Definitely. So this next scene, though, is really great because, of course, Goose and Maverick decide to celebrate the day before Top Gun starts. And Maverick, assisted by Goose, decides to sing a song while hitting on a woman that decides to approach the bar. And this almost becomes my iconic scene for this film, because because he starts off with the simple notes, and it's only him singing it. And he goes, "You never close your eyes," right? And getting the whole bar involved to basically harass this woman, because that's what it is at this point, harassing Kelly McGillis in the bar, and I don't know. What do you think? Would you like to be serenaded by a whole bunch of pilots with "You've lost that loving feeling"?
Oh, of course, especially in the middle of a bar in the officers club. Sit there, have the boys sing to you "You Never Close Your Eyes" by the Everly Brothers. Yes, by the Righteous Brothers, excuse
Yeah, I was
me.
about to say, I was like,
Yes,
not the Everly Brothers.
not the Everly, the Righteous. Sorry. Yes, of course. Have them sing to you "You Never Close Your Eyes" anytime when I feel your lips. Oh my God. And if it was Tom Cruise singing it to me, it'd be all over.
Okay. The thirst is real with you. We get it. Maverick learns the next day that, of course, this is Charlie Blackwood, an astrophysicist and civilian Top Gun instructor. Charlie is very young and very beautiful. At the time, Kelly McGillis was kind of a rising star in the movies. Of course, she obviously tailed off very, very, very heavily. But at the time, she had what? She had The Accused.
She had no, Accused came out after.
But
She had
she
an Oscar
wind up doing
nomination. She did The Accused, but she was Oscar nominated for Witness with Harrison Ford.
right. And she also did. Oh God, what's the name of that movie? Oh, she was Babe Ruth's wife in The Babe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There was always something that I really appreciated about Kelly McGillis, and I got to say it, like there was a small bit of crush on her until I watched the movie later on in years. But when I was a kid, I definitely had like a small crush on her because she had a look to her that was just very dominating, almost. When she's wearing the little Top Gun hat, sitting there with her little clipboard and whatnot. You know, um, something that was very very attractive.
She exuded confidence in the movie.
Yes, suited confidence. That's a really good word. So this romance is kind of weird, and this is where I quickly become very annoyed with the music, because what winds up happening, of course, is the first is they kind of become is Charlie becomes interested in Maverick's inverted maneuver, right, with the MiG-28, which disproves that U.S. intelligence on the enemy aircraft's performance, right. During Maverick's first sortie, he defeats Jester, which was kind of a big deal at the time because this was the lieutenant commander, Rick Jester Heatherly, played by my boy Michael Ironside. I love that guy. But through reckless flying, he broke the 2 rules of engagement. And the rules of engagement, obviously, was you do not go below top deck.
Hard deck.
Yes, you do not go below hard deck, which is a certain level that you're not supposed to fly below, and you never abandon your wingman. Never abandon your wingman. Never abandon your wingman. They are reprimanded by Chief Instructor Commander Mike Metcalf Viper, who is played by Tom Skerritt. And there's a sense of honor when you see like Tom Skerritt like standing there, because it's almost like this stone face expression that he's giving, but he has a lot of admiration for the way that Maverick is flying. But he's like I knew his old man. He has like that 1980s. I knew his old man. His old man, great man, was a really great man. I flew with him. Privately, Jester confides that he admires Maverick's skill, but he wouldn't trust him as a teammate in combat. And it doesn't help that Maverick also becomes a rival to the top student, who's Lieutenant Tom Kazansky, Iceman, who is played by none other than Val Kilmer. And let's be fair here. this is Val Kilmer in his heyday. This is like Val Kilmer, and yes, he is very much a douchebag in this movie. But there's something
Total douche.
but there's something to kind of like about him also, because he cared a lot about getting the job right, and he wasn't necessarily a bad pilot. He's actually an excellent pilot. He was in this like competition thing, and of course we're all rooting for Pete, but like Kazansky was, Iceman is for the most part like a pretty safe student. Like he knows what he's doing. What do you think?
I thought he was a pussy boy.
Oh, go on.
Okay, my expansion on that is, and I know we're gonna delve deeper into it as we get deeper into the movie, but there's a certain scene in the movie towards the end where he questions Maverick's confidence, like thinking, and to me, I was like, well, why do you have to be such a pussy about it? Grow up. I didn't like his cockiness. I know pilots are typically extremely cocky, from personal experience, but that's another thing. But
we don't talk about personal experiences here.
Nope, not at all. He was extremely cocky, extremely, full of himself. Yes, Top Gun is a very competitive. Being a fighter pilot makes you extremely competitive in this world. Is an extremely competitive job. But it's just his character. I just did not like his character at all. I had a really hard time with him.
Fair enough. Kazansky obviously acknowledges that he thinks he does love Maverick's ability, but he thinks his attitude is dangerous. I think you're dangerous, right? He uses that, and Maverick does have a tendency at this point to abandon his team and pursue reckless objectives that make him unsafe to fly with. However, in class, at one particular scene, so after like this whole thing, this volleyball scene happens, and I kind of make fun of it still to this day because it's like this bro macho volleyball scene, right? Which, let's be fair, you have Slider, right, who is played by what's his name? He's played by Rick Rossovich, right? You have Val Kilmer, right? Everybody has their shirts off and everybody's wearing jeans. Then, for some odd reason, you have Anthony Edwards, who really should have a shirt on, and I'm glad he has a shirt on because he looks pudgy, And then you have, Tom Cruise without a shirt. They're doing like this macho, like, yeah, man, we're gonna take it to them. All right, go ahead. You
Listen,
seem like you're so offended by what I'm saying here.
Listen, best scene ever. It's like abtastic town. There's abs everywhere, 6-packs everywhere. You might have an 8-pack in there too, and 8-pack and a 6. Thank God that Anthony Edwards kept his shirt on because you are correct. He does have a little bit of the beer belly going on. But best scene ever. I mean,
now I can see why you decided to skip this because you're going to go on a 20-minute rant about how great the scene is.
The joke with my friends is that every time they all know I'm watching the movie when I post the screenshot of the volleyball scene, they know exactly what movie I'm watching.
Well, that being said, afterwards, Pete decides to go to Charlie's house, being late for a date. And he decides to say, I found this a little weird. I got to be honest. I did find this a little bit weird. He says, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go take a shower. It's like, really? Like, you're just going to shower in this person's house? Like, no problem? I don't think we've ever had a friend come over to shower.
No, that's kind of creepy. I will agree. I will agree with you that was kind of creepy. I mean,
she was like, no. She obviously was like, no, I'm hungry, right? And they kind of get into this conversation. Go ahead. You wanted to say
something. Best song that played during that dinner is one of our all-time favorites from Otis Redding.
Right, Sitting on the Dock by the Bay.
one of the best songs ever played.
So of course they're playing this song and they're kind of having this conversation, basically how Pete has daddy issues, essentially, because his old man, he just wanted to make his old man proud, and Charlie is all about, being at this point. It's a little strange, but Charlie is kind of a career woman at this point. Like she didn't really want to falter stuff. And this scene, I gotta admit, the scene's a little bit awkward because while I believe the connection between both Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise, as the scene continues, this almost plays out to like a 20-minute love scene. And I almost kind of want to shorten this immediately because let's play it out a little bit, right? So they do that, right? And then as he's leaving, the song starts playing, right? And they kind of flirt a little bit in the elevator, right? And then it's nothing. And then they have like this whole thing where like Charlie goes um and objects to Maverick's aggressive tactics, but privately admits to him that she admires his flying. And again, this is where it gets really 80s for me. Because it's like Pete gets all mad, right? And he says, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you," as he's riding off with his motorcycle because he's all pissed off, all pissed off. Goes and drives off. She nearly crashes like 4 cars to catch up to him so he can finish his thought. And I'm like, oh my God. If
And then he's like,
here's my problem with the scene. It would be one thing if she drove like an old station wagon, a popular car from the 1980s. She's driving like a Shelby Cobra and he's on a motorcycle. How the fuck do none of these people like turn around and be like, no, I'm reporting you. You nearly caused me to die. Is that
and then when he pulls over and he's like, Jesus, and you think I'm crazy.
And you think I'm crazy.
So like, I'll let you know that my crew and my plane always come first. And I was like, Jack, you tell her, Tom.
Like, I wanted to finish my thought. I just wanted to say I really admired your ability to fly, but I couldn't say that in front of them because they would know my feelings and they would know exactly how I felt. And again, the goddamn song is still playing during this whole thing. And they're not saying words. It's still the first 8 notes of the song. Da-na-na-na. So after a while, it's just driving me nuts. All right. It gets to the romance. The romance is fine, but then it kind of I don't want to say it takes a backseat. I'll appreciate this. They do this thing where they're kind of reflecting how important the romance was in the movie, but at the same time, like it still wasn't the focal point, because afterwards, of course, during a training sortie, Maverick abandons his wingman Hollywood to chase Viper, who again is impressed with his flying abilities, but is defeated when Viper maneuvers Maverick into a position from his wingman where Jester can then shoot down Maverick from behind, demonstrating the value of teamwork over individual prowess. Jester publicly tells Maverick that his flying is excellent, but that he should never leave his wingman. Never leave his wingman. Afterwards, we get this kind of a nice little scene between Meg Ryan flies in, right, to come see her husband, who's Goose, with her little boy, and once again, repeating of a song, they decide to repeat the chorus of "Great Balls of Fire" by Jerry Lee Lewis. Right? You shake my nerve and you rattle my brain. Da-na-na-na. It might be love. Da-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na. You take my will. Oh, what a thrill. Goodness gracious. Great balls of fire. Right. Doing that. But they did that like 5 times.
So I got a funny tidbit. I heard a rumor about something that happens in during the Great Balls of Fire scene that will replay in Maverick. There's a name that Meg Ryan mentions to Kelly McGillis, Penny Benjamin.
Right. And Penny
the
Benjamin
Admiral's daughter.
is being played by Jennifer Connelly in the second one.
And yep. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Definitely. So after this scene, it is a nice scene, again, kind of exploring the romance, but they finally get back to the point of all this. Maverick and Iceman are now direct competitors for the Top Gun trophy when they decide to chase an A4 in a later training engagement. Since part of the score in every flight in the course is the time taken for every dogfight to conclude, after noticing that Iceman is pulling time during his chase with this A4. And the way that it's kind of lined up, and it's kind of difficult to picture this, but you have the A4 that's here. Iceman is basically right above it, and Maverick is behind and has a very, very clear shot, right? And this is the scene that pisses everybody off, right? Who's ever in the military. After noticing that Iceman is pulling time during his chase after the A4 so that his total score in the course will remain higher than Maverick's, Maverick pressures Iceman to break off his engagement with the A4. They're both chasing so that he can shoot it down himself. However, as Iceman pulls away, a jet wash essentially happens, which, if you're not familiar with what a jet wash basically is, it's basically like a disturbance in the atmosphere that forms behind an aircraft. So when you get caught up between it, your engine's trying to suck in air and there's nothing to suck in. So what winds up happening is that it forces you to go into a spin, and usually an uncontrolled spin. Now, it is possible to get this back, but a lot of times what happens is that because your engine's trying to create oxygen to push through the engine, it causes a flame out, which shuts off both of your engines, right? So that's exactly what happened here. Unrecoverable spin happens, and in the process, Maverick and Goose both eject. But Goose hits the jettison aircraft canopy headfirst and is killed. Here's the problem with that.
Go ahead, tell them what Dad tells us every time we watch the movie.
I'm not kidding you. Cinefolks, I'm not kidding you. Our father literally tells us every single time he watches, he goes, "That's bullshit." Right? Now, let me be fair. All right. Our father is an aircraft maintainer with 35 years of experience working on aircraft. He has worked on an F-14 before. He's also worked on an F-4, which is what the aircraft was essentially based off of. When the canopy actually ejects off, it ejects to the side. It doesn't go backwards. And even if it was going backwards, the plane is still accelerating at the time, and the pilots go up. They don't go backwards. They go up and maintain air before falling down, right? So there was no legitimate way for Goose to be able to hit that canopy. And it is a major fault in this movie. Let's be honest. Because Anthony Edwards is actually really, really enjoyable in this movie. I mean, it's what probably sparked to get him into ER when that show started in the 90s. It was the catalyst that got him there. It's a major blunder. I'm not going to lie, and it's very, very, very controversial. So, although the Board of Inquiry clears Mavericks of responsibility for Goose's death, he's obviously overcome with guilt, and his flying skill basically goes kaput. And this actually takes a big portion of the movie, and I love this. I love it because it's a very, very real emotion. Like the first bromance movie in my eyes is Point Break, and the reason why is because you could see with both Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze in that movie how much they admired each other in this. It wasn't like in the 80s where it was like, okay, the girl's involved, so all my friends get pushed in the back seat. Goose and Maverick was very likable as well, right? Although it did get pushed to the back seat a little bit, and a little bit enough to kind of break off the bromance per se. it definitely was a very, very real reaction that Pete had. What do you think?
It, well, I do agree with you. In a sense, it kind of brings it tears your hero down, because in this movie, Maverick is your hero.
Yeah.
And at this point, Maverick, once he loses Goose, he doesn't know what his sense of purpose is. Is he supposed to fly anymore? He doesn't want to fly anymore because his real man's not there. His
Right.
wheel man's. And it does bring him down to, it brings him down from that pedestal that he was on, that he thought he was on. And it took him down a few notches, and it really affected him, and it made him a real person,
Yeah, especially
to
because he would wind up flying with the unfortunately the only black name in this movie. Um, oh God, it's oh, it's not Merlin because Merlin is Tim Robbins. Sundown, because he flies with Sundown, and it's the scene that you get. Everybody's trying to console him, but Maverick is like considering retiring, and he's like, "I'll fly when I want to fly." Straight up with the aviator glasses and the bomber jacket, right?
super hot.
Oh yeah, no, it's good looking anger. I'll say it that
It's hot
way.
anger. It's amazing anger. But it's at that point that and Viper says something,
Yeah,
when
because
Maverick starts walking away. Viper says, "Keep sending him up."
yeah, and then eventually he'll get in there. So he basically seeks advice from Viper, who does reveal that he served with his father Duke on the USS Orskany and was in the air battle in which Mitchell was killed. But contrary to official reports, which faulted Mitchell, Viper reveals classified information that proves Mitchell died heroically and informs Maverick that he can succeed if he can regain his self-confidence. So,
Another thing
congratulations.
is that Viper says to him, "Is that why you fly the way you fly? Like you're racing." Well, Goose actually, it's like Goose says this at the beginning of the movie after they got themselves in trouble after
Like
the
you're
flyby.
flying against your father or flying against time, right?
You're flying against a ghost.
Yeah.
And I think uh, Pete hearing from Maverick hearing from Viper that his dad did do it right, I think that kind of, in a sense, made him breathe again. That he's like, so it seems to me that I did do it right. I just didn't have control of the situation.
Right. Obviously, Maverick has a choice in this case. He could retire or he could choose to graduate, right? And mind you, a lot of people in the classmate with legitimate concern. Now, you brought up a good point that would come in later. You know, how confident is this guy flying? Well, let's be honest here. You his wingman just died, and when his wingman died, he almost lost his entire confidence to want to fly ever again, right? And when it comes to top missions like that, and to be considered in the top group of those pilots, I kind of side a little bit with the group. Of course, we as the audience watching the movie is be like, no, Pete's going to be fine, right? But if you're playing as a character in that movie and those characters are really going through some stuff, uh, you know, it's very much like this mentality back in the day where it was like nut up or shut up, right? Just stand tall, you'll be fine, right? Um, but but in this movie, I really like it because the people were really like, look, I'm not sure if he's okay. I'm not sure if he's capable of flying. Now, of course, this is the 80s, so the nut up or shut up is what takes into place. But I guarantee you, if this movie would have taken place probably about mid 2010s as the first movie, there may have been a real conversation there about him possibly being considered retiring, and for the others to be concerned because again, they're flying up there with him in very dangerous aircrafts, you know, and they got to do the best they can to complete their mission. So that's my thinking on that, at least. Um, Pete chooses graduation. that also means that Iceman does win the Top Gun trophy, which is at this point it kind of but at that point it took such a back step to the movie that it was great. That's what this movie does really well. It goes through normal levels of human interaction. You get into a hot relationship at first. Okay, well, my best friend may need to take a step back a little bit while I figure out what this is all about, right? I want to go with my best friend to win this trophy. Well, then the trophy is the focal point at this point, right? But then it was like when the graduation happened, it was like, okay, well, like, hey man, congratulations. I'm glad you won. You know, pretty sure I would have won either way, but that's fine. However, during the graduation party, Viper calls on the newly graduated aviators with orders to deploy. Iceman, his wingman Hollywood, and Maverick, or I'm sorry, not Hollywood's not Sliders is Slider is Iceman's wingman. Hollywood, who is played by I'm not going to get this one.
Very.
No, it's Whip Hubley. It's Whip Hubley. And actually, Hollywood is the wingman at the time. That's right. Hollywood is the wingman of Viper, or of Iceman. And Merlin, Tim Robbins is the new radar intercept officer. He's the guy that's sitting behind him, basically. Right. Anyways, doesn't matter. Are ordered immediately to return to Enterprise to deal with the crisis situation, providing air support for the rescue of a stricken ship that has drifted into hostile waters. Now, this is really an awesome scene because a lot of Top Gun is about dogfighting, which was really made popular during this time. Maverick and Merlin, Cougar's former RIO, are assigned as backup F-14s, and Iceman basically says what's in the room. I don't know if Maverick should be there.
Douchebag.
Has a point, but he does say that. You know, it is kind of a shitty thing to say.
Very shitty.
Our assignment is backup for F-14s they're flown by Iceman and Hollywood. And despite Iceman's reservations over Maverick's state of mind, the subsequent hostile engagement with 6 MiGs sees Hollywood shot down. And of course, Maverick is immediately scrambled alone to catapult failure and nearly retreats after encountering circumstances. But this is really great scene because Iceman is basically being chased down by like 3 MiGs, and somehow he is surviving this encounter, which kind of shows a little bit more of Val Kilmer's ability in this movie. Meanwhile, when Tom Cruise comes in, it was like the entire landscape changed, right? Because after encountering a similar situation where he basically goes into a jet wash again, and that's what caused Goose's death. He pulls himself back, regains, and then eventually rejoins. Upon rejoining, the two are badly outnumbered, but Maverick vocally refuses to leave his wingman. Grasshopper finally learns to leave Iceman without a wingman and manages by himself to shoot down 3 of the MiGs. Iceman decides to shift to offense as well and also shoots one down, which forces the last 2 to flee. Upon their triumphant return to Enterprise, Iceman and Maverick share newfound respect in each other, and Maverick throws Goose's dog tags overboard. Offered any assignment he chooses, Maverick decides to return to Top Gun as an instructor, and at a bar in Miramar, Maverick and Charlie reunites. But there was something really cool about that, not necessarily the reuniting scene, because this movie literally could have ended without Charlie's presence in the ending scene. Of course, we all kind of want resolution on that, but that ending scene of like of like because Iceman goes, he goes, Maverick.
You can be my.
He goes, Maverick. You are still very dangerous. You can be my wingman anytime. And Tom Cruise is like, bullshit. You can be mine. Right? It's such a badass line that I'm like, the minute that he's offered to return to Top Gun, I'm like, in the movie there. I'm like, I'm perfectly happy with this movie ending there. But of course, they have to play out this little scene. Charlie decides to play, the you lost that love and feeling, and they embrace whatever.
But
right?
you got to talk about. But you got to talk about in that embrace. Before the embrace, he said. She says, "So how did it go the first?" And he's like, "I crashed and burned." And the second, and he starts laughing, and he's like, "And the second." Because during the bar scene early in the movie when he sang the song to her, she asked him how often did he perform this song.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "We've done it twice." And she asked him how did it go the first time, and the first time he says crash and burn. And then she says, "And the second?" And she said, he says, I don't know, but I'll let you know later."
Cute.
Kind of thing.
Funny.
Right? Best.
Gwen, almost 35 years later since this movie has been released.
34.
That's why I said almost 35. What is something that you always take away from this movie? Or do you ever take anything new away every single time you watch this movie now?
I think for me, every time that I watch it's like watching it for the first time. I mean, you know how often I watch this movie. I love this movie.
I do know how.
It's one of my favorites. I grew up with this movie. He was my first love. So I think every time that I watch this, I think the Commodore, the friendship between him and Goose is really important to me. Mm-hmm. And how brokenhearted he is, and then his love story with Charlie.
Okay. Solid. The music still drives me nuts.
Of course, the music. The music is still amazing. I still do in karaoke "Take My Breath Away."
I know, it's rather annoying, actually. Let's get into some takeaways. Who's getting your That Guy award?
So, of course, Tom.
Okay. Why?
Because Tom's amazing, and he grows into his character. From the beginning of the movie, we see him, he starts off the movie as being a super cocky bastard. Mm-hmm. And he gets taken down a few notches after he has the accident with Goose. And then he starts rebuilding himself as the hero again. So the hero gets knocked down and he comes back up.
Who's getting her That Chick award?
Okay, so this is really hard because you got Meg Ryan and you got Kelly McGillis.
Are you really not going to give it to Kelly?
Well, okay. Of course I'm going to give it to Kelly, but come on, let's make the argument for Meg here.
Okay, go ahead. What's the argument for Meg?
Well, Meg, this role actually started catapulting her, because right after she got this film, she got Inner Space with her husband.
No doubt about it. Meg Ryan is a cute character in this movie, but are you really going to say in this movie that without Meg Ryan, this movie just doesn't work?
No, without this movie, with Meg not being in it, this movie's still going to work. So, of course, I'm going to give it to Kelly, but come on, give her a chance.
Come on.
There's only two women I can pick from unless I pick Viper's wife.
No.
From her.
I refuse.
Of course I'm not going to pick Viper's wife. Of course I'm going to go with Kelly McGillis. She's that chick.
That Fool award.
Oh, what's his name? Rich.
Rossovich?
Yes,
Slider.
Rich Rosovich.
Slider.
Slider. Complete douchebag. I don't even know anything about your Johnson. Come on now. No, but the thing is that believe it or not, I've always liked Rick Rossovich. I watched him in Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn, and then he did that TV show where he was a bicycle cop. That was an awesome show. I used to watch it all the time. But in this movie, he was a complete douchebag.
Okay. Cut that out. Is there a scene in this movie that you would shorten or even expand?
I think I would have wanted to see what Charlie was doing in Washington.
Really?
Yeah, I actually do, because I feel like so she disappears right after the airport scene, like where Hollywood calls her and tells her, "Hey, Maverick just quit," and he's at the airport, and she tells him, she's like, "So where are you going?" And she's like, "You don't even have a ticket," and he says, "Congratulations, I heard you got that job. You got the job." And she says, "I did, but I wouldn't have left without saying goodbye."
Sure. Okay. Does this movie age well?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. This movie can be seen. It could go across the ages. I mean, we're getting a remake in 2020, and one of the things that Tom Cruise said. Tom Cruise made it very clear. The rumor was, and the rumor still is that you're going to have the unmanned plane in there. But in reality, Tom Cruise wanted the dogfight. He wanted to bring the dogfighting back. So you're going to see the fighter jets. So yes, this movie's going to age well, especially now with our military and stuff.
Okay.
A lot of these boys grew up with this movie.
And finally, iconic scene. The scene that stands out with this. Stands out for you.
The scene that is always going to stand out for me in this movie that I'm never going to forget, is Maverick throwing Goose's dog tags in the water.
It's a good scene. It's finally learning to let go.
Yeah, I think that's the one scene that will, stand the test of time with me. Of course, the volleyball scene will always stay with me, but in reality, I think the scene of him tossing Goose's when the camera pans out and he's got his back to the camera and he's looking out into the ocean, and then the camera zooms in on him and he's got Goose's tags in his hands and he launches them in the water. Most iconic scene in the movie.
Very cool. All right, I'll go. My That Guy award is going to go to, obviously, Tom Cruise. In a lot of ways, this was the catalyst for Tom Cruise's career. Without this, we probably don't get the Mission Impossible franchise. Without this, we probably don't get some of the better acting performances that he would do, like in Born on the 4th of July. It's rather fascinating because for as much crap as he's given, without this, we very likely don't get Rain Man. There's a legacy that Tom Cruise really builds, and obviously, it kind of started with Risky Business, and The Outsiders, and if you really want to get into it, Taps, and of course, Legend was also very good, but this was the movie that in my eyes made Tom Cruise the star that he is. Like, without this movie, you don't get Raymond, you don't get Born on the 4th of July, you don't get A Few Good Men, you don't get Days of Thunder. You you need to be able to see how charismatic Tom can really be in a movie, and his charm is turned up to an 11, no doubt about it.
Oh, this movie. I mean, I completely agree with you on that. That
Sure.
this movie is what made Tom Cruise what Tom Cruise is today.
Right. My That Chick award, you're right. I only have two options here. One of the options is, what does that sound? Is that a dog?
They're not in the room.
What is that sound? I'm serious.
That's Susie.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay, so that is a dog. Is she in the room?
No.
Oh my God. Man, she is loud. Sorry. My That Chick award is going to go to. We only have two choices. We have Meg Ryan, who plays a really, really cute character, and there's a lot to like about her. You know, she's very cute. Um, she definitely has her own little personality, you know, with it. But it's tough not to give it to Kelly. And I'm going to give it to Kelly McGillis here. Kelly is what every woman in the 2010s would want to be back then. She was very much a career woman. Let's remember that. And she is incredibly intelligent. Knows exactly what she's trying to get to, and you know it mattered. It mattered back then, like to see somebody so successful in her position, especially with how the U.S. military can sometimes treat women. That being said, like while Meg Ryan is absolutely adorable, and Meg Ryan doesn't become Meg Ryan until When Harry Met Sally, which would happen in 1989. All right, this role helped get that role, but this was Kelly McGillis's like turn to star, and that's how she got. Okay, Witness obviously got her this role. She also got The Accused. Really wish she would have done more after that. Um, you know, but I know there were some Hollywood things that are kind of going on there. You get the idea. But yeah, it's going to go to Kelly McGillis. That Fool Award, I gave you the idea for Slider when we first talked about this movie. So I'm not actually going to steal yours. I am actually going to give it to, man, I'm going to give it to Hollywood. Like, if number one and number two is Iceman and Maverick, then number three has to be Hollywood. And Hollywood never seemed like he was good at flying. Like, I felt like he was a commercial airline pilot. Like every single time I'd watch, you know, this movie and they show him fly. Of course, the focus is going to be on Maverick and Iceman, but Hollywood just left a lot to be desired there. Dude, how do you get shot down by the first missile that hits you? Like, come on, man. Like dodge, flare, something, do something. So I'm gonna give it to Hollywood. Cut that out. It's not so much of a cut that out in terms of scenes. It's I would definitely lessen the impact of the music in this movie because I think I think the character growth is so good in this movie that you don't need to recycle music in this movie that it does. I do think the initial like getting to the love story with Charlie is a little awkward. So I would probably rework that in some way, but I would still probably keep it the same length. Does this movie age well? Absolutely. It's one of those movies that you can watch nowadays and you'd be like, wow, the 80s really seemed like it was really, really, really cool. It made a lot of people want to become a pilot. It made the Navy very popular when this came out. And it's still shown in instructional videos to this day. So obviously people love this movie. Otherwise they wouldn't be making a sequel to it 35 years later. Does it age well? Absolutely. I think it kind of talks a lot about kind of the heyday of the U.S. military. that people really love and enjoy. And finally, iconic scene. You brought up a really good one with the Mavic throwing away the tags. I don't want to take yours. I'm going to say, man, you really nailed it on that scene because that's actually a really fantastic scene. You brought up something really great when it comes to the growth of Maverick. You really need to you really got to see his growth throughout. However, there is something still enjoyable about reckless Pete Mitchell that I just love. So my iconic scene is actually the race against the plane. It's small. It's actually going to be two scenes. Sorry. So it's you see the recklessness of him, which is great because it gives this really sense of freedom that he feels like he has. The next scene I'm actually going to give it is the minute that he steps off the airplane and the first hug he gives is to Merlin, his RIO, because there's a real sense of joy there that everybody just had. Let's keep in mind, like, this was a stranded ship. Pete just became a huge hero, and it was like this. It was what everybody believed that Maverick could do, but they didn't know if he was going to be able to get to that level again. So the bullshit, you can be my wingman, combine those two scenes together. That's my iconic scenes for this movie.
There's one scene that a lot of people don't talk about in the movie that actually, when you go and look at the stills, if you ever pull stills of the movie, this is one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie, believe it or not. It's when he's in the plane and right before the last fight scene, and he hears his name called and he puts his mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you see him like getting into, like, thinking to himself, my boys, he's hearing the radio, he's hearing the comms, and he's like, I need to get in this. I need to let go of my fear.
Right.
Kind of thing. And that scene, and where you see him put his mask on and you see his eyes, that's when you know that he's there.
Right. All right, cool. Let's get into some quick hits so we can wrap this puppy up, and we'll get this taken care of. So first and foremost, the real Top Gun school, which is an actual school, imposes a $5 fine to any staff member that quotes this movie.
Really?
Mm-hmm. When the guys as students were first being spoken to by Charlie in the hangar, Maverick explains that he gave the bird to a MiG. She asks how he saw the MiG up close, and he says he was flying inverted. Right then, Ice coughs bullshit, and the guy left. The bullshit line was actually ad-libbed by Val Kilmer, and so that reaction is actually genuine. Let's see. Stunt pilot Art Scholl was killed during the production of this film at the age of 54. And Art Scholl was actually a very, very famous stunt pilot at the time. He died when his Pitts S2 camera plane failed to recover from a flat spin, and he actually plunged into the ocean. Scholl's last word over the radio were, "I have a problem. I have a real problem." The exact cause of death at the crash was never determined, and neither the aircraft nor Scholl's body were ever recovered. The film is actually dedicated to him. Couple of other things. That's hilarious. I'll give you 5 more scenes. Ready? The Navy only authorized 2 actual missile shots to be filmed for the movie. You can clearly pick out those 2 shots, ultimately shot from several angles, each in order to use both shots repeatedly during the dogfighting scenes. Because the aircraft firing the missile is holding a steady altitude and heading, something that would never happen in a real close-in dogfight, all other missile shots shown in the movie were conducted using miniatures of both the planes and the rockets. the company that produced and fired the model rockets, did such a good job that the Department of the Navy conducted a preliminary investigation into whether any actual live firings of missiles were happening beyond the two originally authorized that were done by the filmmakers. Riding on the backs of film success, the U.S. Navy set up recruiting booths in the major cinemas to try and catch some of that adrenaline-charged guys leaving the screenings. They had the highest application rate for years as a result. After the car chase scene, when Charlie tells Maverick that she didn't want anyone to find out she was falling for him, Maverick originally had a line to say, but he forgot the line and ad-libbed by kissing Kelly McGillis instead. Tony Scott liked it so much, they left the scene like that. Tom Cruise had to wear lifts in his shoes with Kelly McGillis because Tom Cruise is only 5'7". Kelly McGillis is 5'10". Easily 5'10". He had to wear lifts. And keep in mind, in one scene, he has to look like he's taller than her. That's a hell of a lift. That's a 6-inch lift.
Wow.
The character portrayed by Kelly McGillis is actually based on a real person. Her name is Christine Fox, a civilian flight instructor for the producers met on a visit to Miramar while doing research to prepare for the movie. Fox eventually rose through the ranks at the Pentagon, retiring in May of 2014 as Acting Deputy Secretary of Defense, the highest post ever held by a woman at the Department of Defense.
What?
Yep.
Look what Top Gun brings us.
That's right. And if I will give you one more. Oh, that's boring. All right, last one. Because I know you're probably going to want to find out where this place is located. The piano scene and the final bar / jukebox scene were shot in a San Diego restaurant called Kansas City Barbecue. It's at the corner of Kettner Boulevard and West Harbor Drive. The restaurant houses many props and memorabilia from the film. However, on June 26, 2008, Kansas City Barbecue suffered a grease fire that destroyed much of the interior of the establishment. The restaurant has since been repaired to its original state, but much of the Top Gun memorabilia on display was damaged and some were destroyed. The two prominent pieces that remain are the piano, relocated to another corner of the bar, and one of the original Maverick flight helmets used during filming, which sits in a locked display behind the bar. While the helmet does show some slight damage as heat from the fire caused the plastic visor to bubble and warp.
I'd still go to the bar because I could say that Tom Cruise got in that bar.
That's right. So, that being said, that is going to wrap up our 4th of July edition of Back to Classics. Happy 4th of July to everybody. It's the celebration of I guess, our Independence Day from somebody. I can't even remember. It happened so long ago. Who even remembers?
It's our birthday.
It's also true. It's our father's birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday, Dad, if you decide to watch
Happy birthday, Dad.
Gwen, please let the people know where they can find you. That means promoting your Scentsy business.
Oh, yes. You guys can look me up on Instagram. And definitely my Scentsy business is gwenneff.scentsy.us. I am having a mystery party this month. So if you make any purchases on my website for the mystery party, I am going to be selecting a host for a little reward. So please come purchase some Scentsy stuff off my site.
Very cool. And you can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David Danger Neff. I'm the co-host here at Back to the Classics. We will be coming back next week with a brand new, with a new movie coming out. As always, you can follow everything Beat Network at beatnetworkonline.com. You can also check out the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter of those accounts as well at Beat Network. We got a whole bunch of really cool stuff that we're trying to get through for the rest of the year. I'm going to try to be more on camera following up. My goal is to find a 20 for 20 for us to do for movie soundtracks, which I would love to take, and so I can demolish Jay because he ain't got no chance against this. But that being said, I am your host, Danger Neff, and as always, is Back to the Classics. I want to thank you guys so much. Happy Independence Day to all of you. Once again, this is Danger Neff. Back to Classics out. See you guys later. Peace.